Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. The first thing Hannah did was drag my zipper too high. I am Leela, and I was 27 that morning. The teeth caught my skin and I sucked in air fast. She gave this bright fake gasp and called out behind me. "Wow, did they not measure you right for this dress?" I heard a couple of the girls snort, then one full laugh. I forced a smile at the mirror and pulled my shoulders back. "Guess I had one too many late-night snacks," I joked. My voice sounded thin, like it was passing through cotton. I told myself bridal nerves made everything feel sharper than usual. Hannah leaned in close, fingers still on the zipper like a clamp. "You should have gone a size up, babe, this is risky." Her breath hit my ear and I felt my neck go rigid. She stepped back with her hands raised like she was innocent. "Relax, I am only helping you not bust this thing open." That line got another round of laughter, and I laughed too. You probably know that stupid laugh, the one that stings. Inside, something small curled up, like it wanted to disappear. I told myself she was just blunt and not actually cruel. Looking back now, that was the first clear warning flare. Emily glanced over from the chair where they fixed her hair. "You good, Lee?" she asked, eyes already dragging back to the mirror. "Totally fine," I said, giving her a big thumbs up. My chest burned where the zipper had scraped a shallow line. I did not show it because this was supposed to be perfect. Hannah clapped once sharp like she ran the whole room. "Okay, everyone, zip checks, strap checks, let's not flash Aunt Linda." She spun me by the shoulders so I faced the mirror again. Her nails pressed into my skin a little deeper than needed. "Turn, let's see if this holds when you actually breathe." I took a deeper breath on purpose, just to be difficult. The bodice pulled tight and I felt the fabric strain slightly. Hannah raised her brows like she had just won something. "You see what I mean," she said, eyes never leaving mine. "You pop this during vows and no one will forget it." For a second, I imagined the whole church turning toward me. Dress split, chest out, everyone staring and Hannah smirking somewhere. I swallowed that image and smoothed the front of the gown. "Then I just will not breathe," I said, trying for light. My hands shook enough that I had to clasp them together. "Careful with her," one of the other bridesmaids muttered nearby. "She gets stressed easily." The word slid out soft, like a warning and a tease. I knew exactly who trained them to think that about me. I pretended I did not hear it, which fooled nobody at all. Hannah laughed low, eyes still on my reflection. "Yeah, we have to protect our delicate one today," she said. She bumped my hip like we were sharing a friendly joke. Everyone smiled, and no one looked long enough to see my face. My jaw clenched so tight my molars ached, but I smiled wider. Here is the part that still irritates me when I replay it. I could have turned, stepped away, said one simple no. Instead, I shifted my weight and made room for her hands again. I gave her more space to manage me like some fragile prop. I did half her work for her, then blamed myself for hating it. She tugged once more at the zipper, lighter, checking the track. "You know I love you," she said, voice dripping with sweetness. "If I did not, I would just let you explode out there." Her nails scraped my back as she finished that sentence. I flinched and heard her soft laugh land right behind my ear. I stepped forward and away from her reach finally. "Bathroom," I said, grabbing my phone from the vanity edge. No one really reacted, there was too much buzzing around Emily. I slipped into the hallway and let the door whisper shut. Only then did I realize I had been holding my breath. In the bathroom, I twisted to see the damage in the mirror. A red line traced down the middle of my back like a scratch. It was small, not dramatic, definitely not an emergency. Exactly the kind of thing you feel stupid for even mentioning. I stared at it and argued with myself in silence. Maybe she really thought she was helping keep the dress intact. Maybe I was being overly sensitive, like everyone always implied. Wedding days make people intense, that is what everyone says. I pressed my fingertips to the mark and felt the sting. The sting felt less painful than the fact no one defended me. I took a breath, then another, counting slowly to 5. This is what I do when I feel panic crawl up. It sounds very calm when I type it out here. At the time my hands buzzed and my throat felt tight. I stared at my own eyes and asked if I was overreacting. "Get it together," I whispered at my reflection, not kindly. "Do not make this about you today." That line has lived in my head for years now. I said it to manage myself, but I hear her in it. I dabbed under my eyes, then went back out smiling again. The room exploded, dead with noise the moment I stepped inside. Emily was standing now, veil secured, cheeks flushed with excitement. Everyone circled her, adjusting things, fussing, praising, half crying already. Hannah stood close to her elbow, laughing at something loudly. It felt like walking into a show where my role was unclear. "Leela, there you are," Emily called, holding out one hand. I moved in and took it, letting her squeeze my fingers. She looked happy, really happy, which made everything more complicated. "You look amazing," I said, because that part was true. Hannah's eyes flicked from our joined hands to my face. "She almost ripped her dress already," Hannah announced with a little grin. "She is on wardrobe watch for the rest of the day." A couple of the girls glanced at my chest automatically. I wanted the floor to swallow me, but I just laughed once. It came out strained enough that even I heard the crack in it. "That is not what happened," I started, lifting my chin a bit. Everyone turned their attention for half a second in my direction. My mind went blank and I had no follow-up line. "Zipper just caught," I finished, voice smaller than I wanted. Hannah's smile grew wider, like I had just proved her point. Emily squeezed my hand again, distracted by the planner calling her. "Please just help keep everything calm, okay?" she murmured, eyes elsewhere. There it was again, that word hooked right into my chest. "Calm." Like that was my whole job here, not friend, not person. "I can do that," I said, though I was not sure. My brain had already jumped 3 steps ahead into disaster fantasy. Dress tearing, crying, someone snapping at someone, whole day ruined. Every possible wrong move had my name stamped all over it. Meanwhile, Hannah radiated confidence like nothing could ever fall on her. The photographer walked in, already arranging people with quick gestures. "We are starting in 5 minutes," he called over the chatter. Hannah took charge before he even finished the sentence. "Bridesmaids line up, let us get the star in the center." She herded us into position, hands on shoulders, gentle but firm. I ended up near the edge of the group in the lineup. Hannah stepped behind me and nudged my elbow slightly outward. "Turn a bit," she muttered low, only for me. "Angle is better for you if you are not straight on." The implication hit harder than the physical push, and I froze. I angled my body like she wanted, because cameras scare me. It felt like giving her permission right there in front of everyone. She reached past me and brushed a wrinkle from my skirt. To everyone else, it probably looked like a kind little gesture. Her fingers pressed hard into my hip as she did it. "Do not overthink anything today," she whispered, lips barely moving. "Just smile and follow directions, you will survive this." I stared into the lens while he counted down cheerfully. "Smile." Click. My jaw burned and my cheeks felt carved in place. If you look at those photos now, you would not notice. You would probably see a normal group of women, dressed up. I see how my shoulders lean slightly away from her side. I see how her hand on my back looks supportive, not controlling. That day, though, I only knew my skin crawled where she touched. After a round of shots, he stepped back and checked the screen. "Beautiful, one more fun one, ladies," he said, sounding delighted. Hannah threw an arm around my neck like we were best friends. Her forearm pressed into the tender spot where the zipper dragged. I sucked in air and heard her soft chuckle near my ear. "Careful with the breathing," she murmured, still smiling at the camera. "We do not want any wardrobe surprises before she walks down." Something in me flared, quick and hot, almost enough to speak. I pictured myself shoving her arm off and stepping aside. Instead, I stood still and let the camera catch the moment. That is what I keep circling back to when I think about it. Not her comments, not even the little digs, but my silence. I want to say I had no choice, that I was trapped. The truth is, I chose the quiet path over and over again. I chose it because I thought rocking the boat would sink Emily's day. The planner stuck her head in and called us to get ready. Time to line up for the ceremony, time to actually do this. Everyone started moving at once, picking up bouquets and clutch bags. I adjusted my dress straps, then felt Hannah behind me again. "It is showtime," she said softly, fingers straightening fabric at my side. I stepped forward into the hallway, heart pounding way too fast. If I had turned then and told Emily everything, things might change. If I had refused to walk beside Hannah, people would notice. I did none of that, I just walked where they placed me. I wish I could say that was the worst choice I made that day. My phone vibrated so hard it slid toward the edge. I grabbed it just before it dropped and saw preview. Hannah renamed the group chat again. That line alone made my shoulders jump before I even opened it. I already knew it would be something that landed on me. The screen lit up with the new title at the top. Bridal Squad plus our emotional support friend. My name sat next to a little heart and a crying face. 3 people tapped the laugh reaction in under 5 seconds. I watched the icons appear one by one and felt my throat tight. Wow, I get downgraded from Bridesmaid already. I typed it and hit send before I could overthink. The dots popped up from Hannah almost immediately. Oh my god, relax, it is cute, you are our mascot. The word mascot hit harder than anything, like I was some team pet. I stared at the chat, thumb hovering over the keyboard. I thought about writing something sharper, something that actually stung. Instead, I deleted every draft and opened my messages with Emily. You see the new chat name. I sent that alone, no emoji, even though my hand twitched to add one. Her reply came as a recording, not text this time. Her voice came through soft, strained, like she was juggling 10 things. She is just being playful, do not take it in a bad way. She laughed once small, then told me she needed everyone cooperative. I listened twice, hoping I had misheard the part about cooperation. Back in the group, notifications stacked while I hesitated. Hannah had posted a poll with my name on it. Will Leela cry during the vows? The title read at the top. The options were already crying, will cry, and what do you mean she is crying? Votes appeared like little flashing lights, all on the same side. I typed, you know I can see this, right? For a second the chat went silent, which almost felt like victory. Then Hannah wrote, yes, that is the fun part, you know we adore you. A stream of hearts followed, like that magically fixed everything. My cheeks burned even though I was alone in my room. You ever notice how cruelty wrapped in we adore you hits different? It feels like you are ungrateful if you flinch at it. I found myself worrying they were tired of walking on eggshells. That is how deep I had already swallowed their story about me. I did not realize yet that I never wrote that story myself. Later that week, the chat started buzzing before my alarm. Hannah dumped a stack of memes about anxious girlfriends into the thread. Everyone tagged me under one where a woman clung to her partner. My name popped up 4 times in a row with crying faces. I stared at it while my coffee machine gurgled in the corner. Do you ever post about anyone else? I sent it without adding a joke this time, which felt huge. The response came from her within 10 seconds, like she waited. You are the only one honest about your feelings, that is brave. I had no answer for that because it sounded almost caring. That was her trick looking back. One hand poked the bruise and the other handed you ice. You start to think the person who hurt you is helping you heal. So when she followed with, we need your meltdown schedule for planning, I laughed. I hated that I laughed, but I still hit the emoji. A few nights later, we had a planning call in the chat. Hannah posted a detailed list for the bridal shower games. One idea was story time, where everyone shared an embarrassing moment. Leela already won with that panic attack at the concert, she texted. I felt my fingers go cold as the others reacted with little icons. That was private. My thumb shook when I typed those words. I knew exactly who had told her that particular story. The chat went quiet for a moment that felt way too long. Then Hannah replied with a cheerful, Emily tells me everything, we are family. Emily sent one message right underneath that. Girls, please, everything is fine, do not fight, I just want positive vibes. No one used the word sorry. Not for leaking my worst night, not for making it into a joke. I stared at the 3 lines, then locked my phone and dropped it. I tried to push it down and be mature. That is what I kept telling myself during those weeks. Be low maintenance, keep things light, let the small stuff slide away. Except it never really slid anywhere, it just stacked in my chest. Every ping from that chat felt like a coin dropping into a jar. One afternoon at work, I saw the group name had changed again. This time it read, Bridal Squad plus Leela's feelings. No heart, just the crying, laughing face, the one they always used on me. I actually laughed out loud, one short bitter sound at my desk. Then my eyes started burning and I ducked into the hallway. I leaned against the wall and opened a new message to Emily. I need you to ask her to stop using me as a bit. I typed it out clearly for once, no cushions, no fluff. Then I stared at the sentence until the words blurred on the screen. After a full minute I erased it and started over softer. Think the jokes are landing a little rough on my end. That is the version I sent, the watered down one. She answered with another recording while I was still in the hallway. I hear you, she said, sounding tired and a little distracted. She just jokes differently, try to assume good intent, it helps so much. Hearing that now still hits me in a weird place. At the time I clung to the part where she heard me. I ignored the rest, the part where my reaction was the real issue. I walked back to my desk, phone heavy in my hand. I told myself I had done something huge by even mentioning it. The chat slowed down for maybe 2 days after that. Then it picked up again with a vengeance. Hannah posted a screenshot of a bridesmaid checklist and tagged each person. Next to my name she wrote, "Guard our fragile queen from stress." The others piled on with crown emojis and more crying faces. Can we not call me that? I wrote it quickly before I could delete it again. This time she did not answer right away, which made my heart race. Another bridesmaid jumped in instead with, "We love you, do not be so serious." Hannah finally replied with, "Yeah, it is lighthearted, no one is attacking you." That last line hit exactly where she wanted it to land. Because she was right, technically no one was screaming at me. There were no insults that would look ugly in a screenshot. Everything had a little bow on it, covered in jokes and emojis. I started wondering if maybe I really did twist everything into drama. One night I muted the group for 8 hours. That was my small act of rebellion, and it felt enormous. The silence on my phone felt strange, like I had lost a limb. I opened the chat anyway, even though it was on mute. They were in there, laughing without me, and my stomach clenched. Hannah had posted a selfie from a dress fitting with 2 others. The caption read, 3 out of 4 bridesmaids holding it together. Underneath it someone had commented, "We are missing our emotional one." My name was tagged again like a label on a box. I watched the conversation move on without me while I stood in my kitchen. You know that feeling when you realize people built a version of you? One you barely recognize, but they all agree it is accurate. I remember standing there and thinking they must be right. If 3 people frame you one way, maybe that is the truth. I did not consider that 3 people can share the same warped lens. I unmuted the chat and jumped back in with a GIF. Something harmless, something that did not push back at anyone. Instantly the responses rolled toward me again, like a tide returning. Look who emerged. Did we scare you away? Were you crying, be honest? All supposedly playful, all wrapped in that same laugh. I wanted to type, "You are not funny, you are mean." My fingers hovered over the letters, my pulse pounding in my ears. Then I pictured Emily scolding both of us for bringing negativity. I pictured her big day polluted by some petty argument. So I collapsed it into, had a long day and hit send. That is the part I keep circling in my head now. I did not just endure it, I helped keep the bit alive. Every time I threw in a nervous laugh, I added another brick. By the time the wedding weekend arrived, that version of me felt official. It was like I had been cast in a role, and backing out meant wrecking the show. What I did not know yet was how far Hannah would push it. Group chats are one thing, people can claim tone gets lost. Out loud, in front of cameras and family, there are no filters. Those little jokes they rehearsed on my screen were only the rehearsals. The main performance was still waiting, and I walked into it smiling. Hannah pressed a shot into my hand before I said hello. Down at birthday girl of the almost bride, she grinned at me. Everyone around us shouted something loud and messy in agreement. The smell burned my nose and my stomach flipped immediately. I knew if I refused, that would be its own spectacle. "I am pacing tonight," I told her, thumb over the rim. She tipped the glass anyway, nudging it toward my mouth. "Come on, this is your warm-up, you overthink everything." Liquid hit my tongue before I could move my head. Cheering rose up when I swallowed and my throat stung hard. My cheeks went hot faster than the alcohol could possibly work. Not from the drink, from the way everyone watched my reaction. Hannah hugged me with one arm, nails firm on my shoulder. We need loose Leela tonight, not conference call Leela. The group laughed and I laughed half a second late. She swept us toward the reserved table like she owned the night. I trailed behind her, pulling my dress down a little. Someone shoved a glittery sash at me and spun me around. Hannah spun me harder so I almost lost my balance. Her laugh landed on the back of my neck, sharp and pleased. I promised Emily I would deliver peak chaos, she said loudly. That means no one nurses anything, especially our honorary therapy friend. All eyes swung to me again just like she wanted. A second shot appeared in front of me as if on cue. My pulse jumped and I forced a light smile across my face. I want to remember tonight, I said, palms flat on the table. Hannah tapped the glass with her nail, rhythm slow and taunting. You will, you just will not remember the boring parts. She raised her own drink and everyone copied her instantly. In seconds we were all tilted back, nothing subtle about it. I am not going to lie, for a while it felt fun. Music loud, bodies close, people shouting half jokes over the noise. I danced, I laughed, I even forgot to watch myself breathe. Hannah circled like a host, always in the center of the frame. Every time she passed me, another drink somehow appeared in my hand. When I tried to step away to grab water, she blocked me. Bathroom line that way, prayer circle that way, shots right here. Her arm stretched across my path, bright wristband flashing as she moved. She leaned closer, voice dropping under the music. Do not start the stress parade, okay, we are finally having fun. That line hooked right into my chest again, stress parade. It sounded playful on the surface and nasty underneath. I laughed like it bounced off me and back toward the bar. Just grabbing something without proof in it, I yelled over the track. She watched me for a beat too long before turning away. When I got back, the table had shifted and chairs moved. Hannah stood on one, plastic crown crooked, arms spread wide. Game time, she announced, bouncing a little as people clapped. We are playing lowest moment, Bachelorette edition, only real entries allowed. My stomach tightened because I already knew where she would aim. She jumped down and passed around a stack of cards and pens. Write your name, write your saddest disaster, toss it in. Everyone groaned and giggled, calling out half excuses as they wrote. I stared at the blank card in front of me, pen hovering. Every story I thought of felt either fake or too raw. You cannot sit this out, Hannah warned, eyes on me. She leaned over my shoulder, hair brushing my cheek lightly. Yours will win, I just know it. Something in her voice told me she already had a plan. I wrote something mild and stupid about tripping at a concert. We dumped the cards into a bowl and mixed them up. Hannah shook it with exaggerated flair until papers flew out. Perfect, she laughed, scooping them back with one quick swipe. This is exactly the chaotic energy I requested from this evening. I felt my heart start pounding faster than the track behind us. She pulled the first one and read about someone texting an ex. Everyone booed and cheered in that harmless way groups do. More cards followed with bad dates, work mistakes, messy family dinners. We laughed, we cringed, we yelled across the table. I almost relaxed, thinking maybe I had misjudged her tonight. Then she drew one, glanced at it, and her whole face changed. Her mouth curved in a way that made my skin prickle. Oh, this one is juicy, she announced, eyes flicking toward me. She held the card up, but I could not see the writing. I already knew it was not mine, that was the worst part. Picture this, she started, climbing back onto the chair for height. You are out at a crowded place, everything is normal. Her hands moved like she was directing a scene from a movie. Then your brain decides you are dying, your body just shuts down. My breath caught and my fingers curled into the edge of the table. She kept going, voice growing louder as people leaned closer. You cannot breathe, you sob in the bathroom, you call your best friend. She tapped her phone pocket, eyes never leaving my face now. You keep her there for an hour just listening to you shake. Someone winced softly, not at me, at the mental image. I felt my vision narrow to just her in that chair. My tongue felt dry, like I had swallowed chalk, not tequila. She snapped her fingers and grinned down at the table. While she is at dinner with her guy, by the way. A couple of heads turned toward Emily, sitting near the end. I watched Emily's shoulders lock up before she forced them down. Okay, maybe we go easy on this one, she called out. Her laugh came out thin, floating over the group like smoke. Hannah waved her off, eyes bright. Oh please, it is iconic, this is a premium breakdown. Then she dropped the last part, the part that still stings hardest. The paramedics offer to take you in and you refuse, she crowed. You are terrified of hospitals but also convinced you have heart failure. Her audience split between horrified and entertained, which is such a strange sound. I sat there realizing every private detail came straight from Emily's mouth. No one had ever heard that story except them. Not my coworkers, not my family. Not the friends from other circles. Just the person I had trusted with my worst night and her new favorite bridesmaid. My fingers went numb around my glass, slippery and cold. Someone near me whispered, "Wow," and then immediately covered her lips. Hannah hopped down and tossed the card back into the bowl. Winner, honestly, she declared, lifting her drink in my direction. She did not say my name, she did not have to. All eyes had shifted toward me anyway, searching for confirmation. I could feel their curiosity land on my skin like static. I forced my throat to clear and raised my glass halfway. That one definitely sounds familiar, I managed, trying for light. The words came out strained, and I knew everyone heard it. A few people laughed in that awkward way people do when unsure. My chest felt tight, and it had nothing to do with panic attacks. Emily slid her chair closer and bumped her knee against mine. You okay? She asked quietly, just enough volume for me. I nodded fast, too fast to be convincing. Yeah, totally, it is just an old thing, I muttered. Old thing, like it was a bad haircut, not the worst night of my life. Hannah snapped her fingers again to pull the attention back. Next up, someone peed in their boss's pool, she said with a giggle. Laughter shot across the table like someone flipped a switch. Conversation swerved away from me in under 10 seconds. I sat there trembling while they joked about chlorine. That whiplash did something weird in my head. 1 second I was exposed on the table, the next I was invisible. It felt like being stripped down and then tossed into a corner. I kept smiling because the alternative felt dangerous. If I cried there, she would never let me live it down. I lasted another 20 minutes before my legs carried me away. I told them I needed the restroom, and no one really looked up. In the stall, I locked the door and pressed my forehead to my wrist. My heart slammed against my ribs, too fast and too loud. For a second I thought, here we go again, round 2. But this was not that kind of episode, not quite. This was fury fighting with shame, buzzing under my skin. I wanted to march back out, rip the crown off her head. I wanted to shout over the music that she was cruel. Instead, I wiped under my eyes and tried to slow my breathing. Get it together, you are not giving her more content, I whispered. My voice sounded harsh in the small tiled space. It was like I was talking to a version of myself I did not like. The one who always folds, always apologizes first, always smooths things. I hated that girl and needed her at the same time. When I stepped out, Hannah stood at the sinks, fixing her lip gloss. Her reflection spotted me before she turned around. There she is, she smiled, head tilted like I was a child. Was that too much for you, princess? She leaned on the counter, blocking my path to the door. I froze halfway to the paper towels, fingers still damp. What you did out there was crappy, I told her. The curse caught in my throat, but I forced it out. You knew that story was personal, you knew that was mine. My hands shook in midair, more from anger than fear. She studied me, eyes moving over my face, searching for cracks. You think I am the villain for telling a funny story. Her voice stayed level, almost gentle, which made it worse. You literally survived it already, you are here, laughing with us. She tapped my arm with one knuckle, like I was overly dramatic. I did not give you permission to use it for entertainment. I heard my volume climb and forced it down again. You turned one of my worst nights into a party game. There was a ring in my ears that had nothing to do with music. I could see my expression in the mirror behind her, wild and cornered. Hannah sighed like I had just dropped a chore in her lap. You cannot keep everyone on emotional lockdown forever, she shrugged. Emily tells me things, I tell her things, that is how closeness works. She glanced at her reflection again, adjusting a stray strand. Also, you talk about it like it is folklore anyway. That part knocked the breath out of me more than anything. Because I do talk when I feel safe in small circles. Not at parties, not over music, not for strangers to rate and judge. Yet here she was, spinning it like I had invited the spotlight. I felt the anger drain into something heavier and colder. If you wanted to share, you should have asked me first. My voice came out low now, almost calm, which surprised me. She smiled at that like I had told a cute joke. You would have said no, and then you would sulk all night. Her shoulders lifted in a tiny shrug, as if that explained everything. She stepped closer until we were almost toe to toe. Look, you know how intense you can get, right? She murmured. We are just trying to keep things light before the wedding. Her perfume wrapped around me. Sweet and suffocating at once. If we walk on eggshells every time, this whole thing collapses. There it was again, that guilt hook, the thread of collapse. I could practically hear the words she would use later. Leela ruined the mood, Leela could not roll with friendly teasing. The story wrote itself in my head, line by line without help. I took one step back so my spine hit the cool tile wall. I am not asking for eggshells, I told her quietly. I am asking you not to weaponize my breakdowns for laughs. I expected her to argue, to push back, to defend herself. Instead, she smiled, slow and bright, like she had found something fascinating. There it is, she whispered, you think we owe you special handling. For a second, I honestly thought I might shove her away. My hands flexed, fingers curling, arms ready to move. Then an image flashed of Hannah stumbling, hitting the floor, screaming. The whole party swarming in, asking what happened, turning toward me. I dropped my arms and scraped my nails down my own palms instead. She noticed every bit of that, and her grin only widened. Do you want to go home? She asked in a mock-sweet tone. We can tell Emily you needed a mental health break. My stomach lurched at the thought of that headline being delivered. I saw it spreading through the night like a spill no one cleaned. No, I answered, quicker than I meant to, almost desperate. She nodded once, satisfied, as if we had agreed on something fair. Great, then wash your hands, breathe, and come back out smiling. She moved aside finally and headed for the door. Right before she left, she tossed one more line over her shoulder. Besides, if you ever actually stopped caring, what would you even talk about? The door swung behind her, cutting off the noise again for a second. I stared at my reflection, water dripping from my fingertips. In that quiet moment, I did not like the person looking back. Not because she was weak, but because she kept choosing silence. I dried my hands slowly and walked out after her. The music crashed over me again, bright and relentless and fake. Everyone was shouting over some new joke when I reached the table. Hannah already sat next to Emily, miming some story with big gestures. Their heads were close, their laughter synced, their shoulders touching. Emily lifted her gaze and spotted me hovering near the edge. She motioned me over with a quick flick of her fingers. You missed our toast, she smiled, cheeks flushed, eyes shiny. We were saying how lucky we are to have you here. The words landed soft and sharp at the same time, like a double cut. I slid into the only open seat, directly across from Hannah. She held my stare for half a beat, then lifted her glass. To the bravest one at this table, she announced loudly. Who feels everything, still shows up and keeps us honest. Everyone hooted again, taking it as affection, not as another jab. I drank the watered-down cocktail in front of me without tasting it. On the outside, I probably looked like I had relaxed back into the fun. Inside, I was cataloging each phrase, each look, each twist of her mouth. I knew parts of this night would follow me for a long time. What I did not grasp yet was how often she would quote them later. Hannah dropped into the seat beside me so hard my water jumped. My bag slid off the chair and landed under her heel. Oops, she murmured, nudging it aside without looking down. Her shoulder pressed into mine like we were sharing the same skin. I knew before she opened her mouth that she was not here to be friendly. Across the table, Emily lifted her glass while people were still sitting. Thank you all for being here, she called over the low chatter. Her fiancé squeezed her knee, and everyone made those polite noises. I kept my eyes on her, using her voice like a lifeline. Beside me, Hannah leaned back and let out a small sigh. You look wired, she whispered, nudging my elbow with 2 fingers. Try to smile or Aunt Maggie will think someone died. I tightened my grip on the napkin until my thumb hurt. I am fine, I said, keeping my gaze locked on Emily. Even to my own ears, it sounded flimsy and over-rehearsed. Sure, Hannah murmured, tilting her head as she studied my face. You are vibrating and we have not even hit salad yet. She lifted her glass and clinked it against mine without warning. Here liquid courage, or at least liquid silence. Her lips curled like that was the cleverest line she had used all day. I took a tiny sip just so she would not push harder. The drink burned its way down and settled like a stone. On Emily's side, someone cracked a joke about married life. Laughter moved around the table in a slow wave, skipping my spot. I pulled my shoulders back and tried to pretend my pulse was normal. The server reached behind Hannah to set a plate in front of me. Hannah moved her chair closer instead of making space. Her knee bumped mine under the table and stayed there. You know she was a wreck over the seating chart, she muttered. Kept stressing about where to tuck you so you would not freak out. The words slid in quiet and sharp, but she kept smiling outward. I blinked once, stared down at my plate, then back at her. What are you talking about? I asked, voice low and flat. She scooped a forkful of food like we were discussing the dressing. She worries about you more than anyone else here, that is all. That should have sounded kind. Instead, it felt like an accusation wrapped in a compliment. She cares because we are close, I answered, jaw working slowly. The napkin in my lap twisted tighter around my fingers. Hannah's grin widened like I had stepped exactly where she wanted. Close, she echoed, drawing the word out like it amused her. She calls you every time you unravel, you realize that, right? Her voice stayed soft enough that no one else heard. Even when she is busy, she drops everything to talk you down. She chewed as she watched me, like this was just dinner conversation. You make it sound like a burden, I said, throat going dry. I knew how many late calls I had made over the years. Hearing it cataloged like a ledger made my stomach roll. She worries, Hannah repeated, tapping her fork against my plate. And you rely a lot. I wanted to push my chair back and put space between us. The room felt suddenly smaller, louder, crowded with clinking and chatter. Instead, I straightened the edge of my napkin like that mattered. I am not the only one who vents to her, I muttered. Hannah let out a short laugh that did not match her smile. Oh, we all vent, she agreed, waving at the group casually. Difference is, if she missed my call, I would manage on my own. Her gaze cut back to me, sharper now under the friendly tone. With you, she panics there will be an ambulance involved or something. My hands went cold, even though the room felt too warm. Someone at the far end started a toast for Emily's parents. Chairs scraped, glasses lifted, people turned their attention that way. I stood when everyone else did, clinging to the distraction. Beside me, Hannah stayed seated for a beat, watching my reaction. When she finally rose, she leaned close enough that I felt her breath. Relax, I am not mad you lean on her, she murmured. I just wish you saw how heavy that gets right before a wedding. She tapped her glass against mine again, harder this time. To anyone watching, we were two friends whispering during a speech. Inside, I felt like I had been opened up on the table. After the toast, people broke into smaller clusters around the room. Chairs shifted, relatives wandered over with hugs and quick questions. Emily floated from group to group, eyes bright, hand never empty. I watched her trail of conversations while pretending to check my phone. Hannah stayed anchored next to me, as if we were tethered. So let us list it out, she said quietly once the noise rose again. Her tone had that fake cheerful edge that always meant trouble. In the last few months alone, how many times did she calm you down? I frowned at her, completely thrown. What are you doing? Counting, she answered, tapping one finger on the table. Rehearsal meltdown last week when the florist ran late. Another tap. Little freak out when the venue emailed you instead of her. Another tap. Plus the time you almost backed out of the bridal shower. My chest tightened like someone had looped a rope around it. She watched every twitch in my face with almost clinical focus. I did not back out, I muttered, lowering my gaze to my plate. You almost did, she insisted, finger tapping yet again. She called me after, worried you would vanish on her day. The idea of them discussing me like that sent a fresh jolt through me. I imagined my name dropped into their late-night conversations. Not as a friend, but as a shared problem to solve. That is between us, I said, pushing my food around. The fork scraped louder than I meant, drawing a quick glance from across. Hannah lowered her voice further, almost forcing me to lean in. This is between us now, I am telling you how it looks. She rested her chin on her hand, elbow near my plate. She bends herself in half to make space for your feelings. Her eyes held mine, unblinking, like she dared me to argue. Are you actually worried about her or just enjoying this? I asked. The question slipped out before I could pull it back. Her mouth twitched, not quite a smile, not quite a flinch. Both, she answered truthfully, which somehow felt worse. Then she went back to her fork like we were discussing the weather. I could have stood up right then and walked away. No one had chained me to that chair, I know that now. Back then, leaving felt like confirming everything she believed about me. Fragile, overdramatic, unable to handle a simple con. Versatian. So I stayed, and that choice still annoys me when I think about it. She took a sip of her drink and tilted the glass toward Emily. You know what she told me, Hannah said, eyes still on the head table. She said if you bailaid as maid of honor, she would still get it. My heart dropped into my stomach at the word bailaid. I never said I would bail, I shot back a little too loud. A couple of relatives glanced our way, curious for half a second. I forced my lips into something that resembled a smile. Hannah covered her mouth like we were sharing something hilarious. Relax, I am paraphrasing, she murmured once the extra eyes drifted off. But yeah, she gets that you are a flight risk. The phrase hit me harder than any other label she had used. Flight risk. Like I was a liability that needed constant monitoring. She did not call me that, I said, knuckles whitening around my fork. Hannah shrugged once, lazy, like the details barely mattered. She would not phrase it that way because she is nicer than me. She ran a fingertip along the rim of her glass, almost bored. But she knows she has to do more emotional cleanup with you. Her gaze slid back to my face, measuring the damage. You are not easy, Leela. Hearing my name in her mouth like that made my neck prickle. It sounded like a diagnosis more than anything else. I swallowed against the dryness in my throat and inhaled slowly. If you think I am so much work, why are you even telling me this? I already knew the answer, but I wanted to hear her version. She leaned in until our shoulders collided again. Because someone has to say it out loud, she murmured. Emily will never tell you she is exhausted, she loves you too much. Her nails grazed my forearm in a light, deliberate sweep. I am the one who can actually be honest with you. That word honest did something weird in my chest. It made me question my own perception in real time. Was she being cruel, or was this some twisted favor? Sitting here writing now, I know the answer. Back then, I only knew my hands would not stop shaking. Emily's laughter carried over to our side as her dad made a speech. She threw her head back, ring catching the light as she clapped. Everyone turned toward the head table, faces soft, eyes on her. For a moment the whole room felt full of simple joy. Beside me, Hannah rolled her eyes at the sentiment and smirked. She is really happy, I muttered, mostly to myself. Hannah followed my gaze and her expression shifted just a little. She is, she agreed, almost genuine for once. That is why I get territorial when someone drains her dry. Then her tone hardened again. You do not see that because you are usually on the receiving end. That was the moment I finally pushed my chair back. The legs scraped loud enough that a few heads turned. I need some air, I said, dropping my napkin on the table. Hannah leaned back, hands raised, all innocence. Go regulate or whatever you need to do. That last phrase burned its way down my spine. I walked out of the dining area and into the hallway. My heart hammered against my ribs, palms slick, mouth dry. I gripped the railing outside for a minute, just focusing on breathing. The night air did not calm me as much as I hoped. I considered just leaving. Grabbing my keys, texting some excuse and disappearing. No big scene, no fight, just quietly not coming back inside. For a full 30 seconds, that plan felt doable. Then I pictured Emily scanning the room and not finding me. So I turned around and went back in. That is the part that always gets me when I replay it. I walked voluntarily back to the table where she was waiting. Hannah saw me before anyone else and smiled like nothing had happened. She even pulled my chair out for me with exaggerated courtesy. You okay now? She asked in a tone that made my teeth clench. Do we have our calm queen back? I sat down slowly, forcing my shoulders to stay level. I am talking to Emily later, I answered, eyes fixed on my plate. About you. Something flashed across her face, quick and sharp. Then she smoothed it away and dabbed at the corner of her mouth. You do that, she said lightly, voice almost sing-song. Just remember she has a wedding in 2 days. Her fingers drummed once on the table, a tiny drum roll for disaster. I waited until dessert plates were half cleared and chairs started shifting. The noise level climbed as people hugged, posed for photos, traded stories. Emily hugged a relative and then turned toward me with open arms. Hey, you disappeared earlier, she smiled, looping an arm around my neck. You good? My throat tightened at the question, but I nodded once. Can we talk for a second, just us? I asked. She glanced around at the crowd and then back at me. Make it a quick one, my mom already thinks I vanished. She tugged me toward a quieter corner near the exit. Up close, I could see how tired she actually looked. Foundation could not hide the little lines near her eyes. What is going on? She asked, folding her arms loosely. Please tell me this is not another vendor crisis. Her attempt at humor landed somewhere between sweet and strained. It is Hannah, I blurted too fast, no soft lead-in. Once the words came out, there was no way to swallow them. She has been pushing these little digs for weeks, you know that. I tried to keep my voice even, but it wobbled anyway. This dinner she took it up a notch. Emily's mouth tightened almost imperceptibly at Hannah's name. What happened exactly? She asked, tone shifting a little cooler. My brain flashed through every comment, every tap on the table. If I repeated her lines word for word, it would sound petty. If I softened them, it would sound like nothing at all. She laid out all my moments, I started, searching for neutral language. Like a list, how often I lean on you, how worried you get. Emily looked down at her hands, thumbs rubbing together slowly. And she told me you keep me around more out of guilt than anything. My voice dropped on that last part, like maybe a lower tone hurt less. Emily exhaled, long and heavy, staring at the floor between us. I vented to her, she said finally, eyes still down. Once or twice, about being tired, about juggling everyone. She looked up at me and there was honest regret in her expression. I did not think she would repeat it back to you like that. For a moment, her admission made my chest loosen. Then the rest of her sentence landed. Once or twice. Exhausted. Juggling everyone. It was not just me in that list, I knew that, but still. So you did say you were tired of me, I asked quietly. It came out smaller than I wanted, almost like a child. Her face changed at that, eyes going wide. I did not say that, she insisted, shaking her head fast. I said I worry about you, that is different. Is it? I asked, because at that point I genuinely was not sure. I could feel my eyes starting to sting and fought it hard. This is not just gentle teasing anymore, Em, it feels targeted. I gestured toward the room, toward the empty chair beside mine. She uses your words as ammunition and hides behind we are family. Emily glanced over my shoulder, toward where Hannah was talking to her mom. Her jaw clenched once, then loosened, like she was rehearsing a response. I am not defending everything she does, she said slowly. She is blunt, she pushes too far, I know that. She took my wrist, fingers cool against my skin. But you two are making me feel like I am stuck in the middle of a custody battle. That last line stung worse than anything Hannah had thrown at me. Seriously, I whispered, pulling my arm back. I am telling you I feel picked apart and you are making it both sides. My voice rose on that last part and I forced it down again. A couple of people glanced over, curious, then looked away. I cannot referee every tension in my life right now, she answered. Her voice never got loud, but it hardened around the edges. I need you both to act like grown-ups and not blow this up. She looked at me in a way that made my stomach sink. If you can do that, amazing, if not, I do not know. There it was. The quiet threat underneath the pretty words. Not spelled out, but clear enough that I felt it settle between us. If something exploded, it would not be on Hannah. It would be on the person who had the reputation for losing control. I am not looking to start drama, I managed, throat thick. I just want you to ask her to stop using me as her punchline. Emily ran a hand over her hair, then let it drop. I will talk to her, she said, almost under her breath. After the wedding, I cannot handle a meltdown right now. Meltdown. Another word that made me feel like a problem to manage. I nodded because I did not trust myself to speak. If I pushed harder, I knew exactly whose name would end up attached to any fallout. So I swallowed everything burning in my chest and forced a smile. Sure, I said, lips numb. After the wedding. It sounded like a promise and a delay at the same time. She hugged me quickly, arms squeezing tight, perfume filling my nose. I love you, she murmured, already pulling away to greet someone else. I watched her move back into the center of the room, ring catching the light. People reached for her, laughed with her, kissed her cheek. Hannah slid in beside her like she had not just dissected me at the table. They shared some joke I could not hear, shoulders touching, eyes bright. From a distance they looked perfectly aligned. I walked back to my spot and lowered myself into the empty chair. The plate in front of me had gone cold without me noticing. Hannah glanced over, eyes flicking from my face to Emily and back. Everything good? She asked lightly, like we were talking about the menu. Age. Her smile did not reach her eyes, and I felt something inside me harden. That depends, I answered, meeting her stare head on. On whether you are finished taking inventory of my breakdowns. For half a second her expression slipped. Then she grinned, slow and bright, like I had just told a charming joke. Oh, we are just getting started. I did not know then how literal that line would become. If I had, maybe I would have walked away from both of them that night. Maybe I would have taken the hit early instead of later. Instead, I picked up my fork and pretended nothing was wrong. And I carried that choice straight into the wedding day, where everything finally cracked. Hannah slapped the bouquet out of my hand just as I reached for it. Not yet, she snapped, foot pinning the ribbon against the carpet. You smear that lipstick on your dress, Emily will lose her mind. The makeup artist froze mid-reach, brush hanging in the air. Everyone's eyes flicked to me like I was the toddler in the room. I can hold flowers without attacking myself, I muttered, fingers curling. My voice barely carried over the buzz of people and music. Hannah crouched, scooped up the bouquet, and straightened with a grin. We are not taking chances with you today, she announced. The other bridesmaids laughed, quick and uneasy, and then pretended to adjust their straps. I caught my reflection over her shoulder and almost did not recognize myself. Hair perfect, face polished, dress fitted like they wanted. Inside I felt like a balloon stretched too far, ready to pop. If anyone looked close, they would see it in my eyes. No one looked close, they were all orbiting Emily. The planner clapped near the doorway and called out times. 10 minutes to line up for first look, she shouted. Emily turned, veil lifting slightly, and her smile hit me square. Positions, ladies, she joked, voice shaking with nerves and joy. Hannah moved before anyone else, sliding into place at her side. I started toward the garment rack to grab my wrap. Hannah stepped neatly into my space and blocked me. I have it, she chirped, reaching up before I could. Her arm brushed my chest harder than necessary as she stretched. Maybe stick to walking and breathing, let us handle logistics. I felt the comment land on my skin like a slap. The others chuckled, heads down, pretending to fuss with earrings. Emily did not quite hear the words, just caught the mood shift. Everyone okay? She asked, eyes jumping between us. Please, I need chill energy just for an hour. That last line hit me like a reminder and a warning. After last night, I already knew exactly where I ranked. Keep the temperature low or be the problem again. I forced a small smile and lifted my hands slowly. All good here, I lied, hoping my face cooperated. We shuffled toward the door for the walk to the courtyard. The corridor felt tight, bodies close, dresses brushing together. Hannah positioned herself directly in front of me in the line. Her hand kept reaching back, steadying my arm on every step. Each light grip carried the message she thought I might bolt. Remember to count your breaths, she murmured under the chatter. Do not want you collapsing in the middle of her big moment. Heat crawled up my neck and into my ears. I leaned back to shake her off, but she clung tighter. To everyone else it probably looked protective, not controlling. We paused near the doors while the photographer arranged Emily outside. Voices from the courtyard floated in, bright with excitement. Inside the anteroom the light felt flatter, air thicker. The other bridesmaids peeled off to check hair and lipstick in mirrors. For the first time that morning, Hannah and I were almost alone. She turned, still holding my arm, and studied my face. "You are doing that thing with your jaw again," she noted softly. "Grinding like you're bracing for impact." I pulled back, freeing my arm, fingers tingling where she'd held. "Maybe stop giving me things to brace for," I shot back. Her smile thinned, then snapped back into place like elastic. "You know I am trying to help," she answered, voice syrupy. "If you go nuclear out there, she will never forget it." The word nuclear made my stomach twist hard. "I am not a bomb," I said, chest tight. She stepped closer until my back almost brushed the wall. "Everyone is walking on tiptoe around you, and you still do not see it." She spoke low and even, eyes bright, never leaving mine. "She barely slept worrying you would disappear or melt down." I flinched at melt down, another term for the file she kept. "She told me she trusts me to keep you steady," Hannah went on. "She has enough on her plate without monitoring every breath you take." There it was again, the same story she loved repeating. Me as a task, her as the one holding the leash. I swallowed hard and tasted metal. "If she trusts you so much, why do you keep cornering me?" Instead of calming her, I asked. The question came out sharper than I intended, but I did not regret it. Her brows lifted like I had finally said something interesting. "Because you are the source," she said simply. "Cut the leak, the flood stops." Before I could answer, the planner poked her head in. 2 minutes, she called, eyes sweeping across the room. "We stage here, then head out in order." The others drifted back, checking hems and bodices one last time. Hannah stepped away from me and transformed her expression in a heartbeat. "Okay, one last mental check," she chirped to the group. "Everyone remember where to stand, where to look, where not to cry." She pointed playfully at each bridesmaid, landing on me last. "And you, deep breaths, no fainting, we practice this." Soft laughter rolled around us and my insides sank. I wanted to scream that I was not the weak link she kept selling. I wanted to rip off the dress and walk barefoot to my car. Instead, I adjusted my neckline and nodded like a good prop. You ever watch yourself obey someone you can't stand? It feels like watching a stranger through your own eyes. We moved out, following the planner like ducklings. The air outside hit my skin cooler than the suite. I lined up where they'd marked, bouquet clutched too tight. From where I stood, I could see Emily's back as she posed. I focused on the curve of her shoulders just to stay grounded. After the first round of photos, the planner waved the photographer off. 5-minute reset, she announced, checking her clipboard. Emily was led to a chair under an arch, fussed over again. The other bridesmaids drifted toward water and tiny snacks. Hannah looped her arm through mine and steered me away. "Come on," she murmured, tugging me toward a side hallway. I dug my heels in, but she jerked harder. "Bathroom check, you have that look." "What look?" I demanded, stumbling after her anyway. "You look like you might bolt," she answered without hesitation. The hallway was empty and quiet compared to the courtyard. The muffled sound of guests arriving drifted from somewhere else. Hannah let go of my arm once we were fully out of sight. I straightened my dress and put as much distance between us as possible. "What do you actually want?" I asked, tired down to my bones. She studied me for a long moment, expression unreadable. "You sure you want that answer?" she asked. "For once, yes," I said, leaning back against the wall. "If you are going to tear me apart, do it clearly." My hands shook, but I kept them at my sides. Her smile disappeared completely this time. "You are not her anchor," she said slowly. "You are her project." The words landed heavy, each one its own hit. "She does not lean on you, she manages you." I felt the ground tilt a little under my feet. "That is not true," I pushed back, heat rushing to my face. "We lean on each other, that is how this works." Hannah shook her head once, almost pitying. "She picks up your pieces, I am who she vents to about it after." "That is between us," I snapped louder than I meant. "Whatever she shares with you does not give you ownership of me." My throat burned and I could feel tears pressing up. I blinked hard, refusing to let them fall in front of her. Hannah watched every twitch like she was timing a reaction. "You hear yourself right?" she asked softly. "You talk like you are her other half, not her friend." She took one small step closer, voice dropping again. "You cling to her like she is supposed to fix your whole life." My chest squeezed tight at cling, the exact word Emily had avoided. I am allowed to need my friend, I fired back. I have shown up for her in ways you do not even understand. It sounded weak even to me, like I was defending a thesis. Hannah tilted her head, eyes narrowing slightly. You confuse intensity with loyalty, she said. There is a difference. Anger flared hard enough that my hands stopped trembling. You know what, I said, pushing off the wall. You do not get to define what our bond is. I stepped closer, closing the distance she kept playing with. You are the new addition, you do not get to rewrite history. Her jaw shifted at new addition, just a flicker. Then she smirked, that same slow curve I had grown to hate. I am not trying to rewrite anything, she replied. I am telling you what everyone else is too polite to say. She leaned in until her nose was almost touching mine. You are needy, she murmured, words careful and deliberate. You are exhausting, you orbit her like a lost puppy. Each sentence felt like a shove, even though she never touched me. You are not her partner, you are her clingy little comfort pet. She smiled wider at pet, like she had finally found the perfect label. I actually staggered back a step, shoulders hitting the wall again. It was not just the insult, it was the sheer pleasure in her voice. She enjoyed saying I. Tay. She enjoyed watching my face when it landed. I tasted bile and adrenaline at the same time. You are disgusting, I choked out, palms braced behind me. The hallway seemed to narrow, edges closing in on us. That is how you talk about someone on your friend's wedding day. She shrugged lightly, as if she had commented on my shoes. Better you hear it from me than from her later. For a split second I saw red. Not anger in some poetic sense, just raw heat and static. All the group chat digs, the party game, the rehearsal talk. They crashed together in my head like a single messy slideshow. Something in me finally snapped. Get away from me, I shouted, voice echoing off the walls. The sound startled even me, loud and harsh and real. Stop touching me, stop talking about me, just stop. My hands flew up, not to shove her but to hold distance. I must have looked wild, dress and hair perfect, eyes anything but. Hannah froze for a heartbeat, then her features rearranged. Suddenly she looked smaller, wounded, lip trembling just enough. Wow, she whispered, stepping back like I had pushed her. I was trying to help you, not ruin this for her. Her hand flew to her chest, nails digging into the fabric. Footsteps clicked down the hallway before I could respond. Emily rounded the corner, veil trailing behind her, eyes wide. What is going on? She demanded, taking in the scene. Her gaze went straight to my raised hands and Hannah's flinch. Whatever she had walked in expecting, it was not this. I dropped my arms like they were burning. Nothing, I started, voice cracking on the first syllable. We were just talking, it got heated, but. Hannah cut across me with a broken laugh. It is fine, she breathed, shaking her head quickly. I probably pushed her too hard, I forget she is sensitive. That word made my stomach lurch. Emily moved to Hannah first, hand landing on her arm. Are you okay? She asked, eyes scanning her face for damage. Hannah nodded fast, then glanced at me like she hated herself for it. She just yelled, I should not have cornered her, that is on me. It was such a perfect little performance, I almost applauded. Not technically lying, just arranging the truth for maximum impact. Emily's attention snapped to me, expression tight and controlled. Why are we yelling in a hallway right now? She asked. We are supposed to be lining up. I opened my mouth and nothing came out at first. Air moved, sound did not. He called me, I tried, then stopped, throat closing around the word. I could not bring myself to repeat pet in front of her. I suddenly felt childish just thinking it. Hannah jumped in to fill the silence. I told her she leans on you a lot, she said quickly. I thought honesty might help, I misjudged the moment, totally my fault. She laughed once, short and shaky, eyes shining just enough. I forget she takes things so much deeper than the rest of us. There it was again, so smooth I almost admired it. I could see Emily's shoulders tense under the lace. I asked both of you not to do this, she said quietly. Literally last night, I begged you, please, no drama. Her voice did not rise, but every word hit like a stone. I am not doing this, I protested, heart pounding. She dragged me back here and called me. I stopped again, feeling ridiculous. What was I supposed to say? She called me her emotional comfort animal. It sounded cartoonish out loud, even though it gutted me. Emily pinched the bridge of her nose, careful not to smudge anything. I do not have time to unpack who said what, she muttered. Guests are sitting down, we are on a schedule. She looked between us, eyes landing on me last. Can you just hold it together for the next few hours? The phrasing sliced straight through me. Hold it together. Not are you okay? Not what happened. Just can you behave long enough not to wreck this? I have been holding it together for months, I replied, voice low. The words came out before I could soften them. And she keeps pushing and pushing because she knows you will blame me. Hannah inhaled sharply, shoulders shaking like I had slapped her. Leela, Emily warned, my name coming out like a reprimand. Something inside me sagged at the way she said it. Not worried. Not gentle. Just tired and annoyed and done. I suddenly felt more embarrassed than angry. I can walk and smile, I answered finally. That is what you need from me, right? My chest tightened as I said it because I already knew the answer. Emily stared at me for a long second, then nodded once. I need everyone to act like they love me today, she said. That line has lived in my brain rent-free ever since. Because the implication was right there, hanging between us. If you love me, you swallow this. If you love me, you let her win again. If you love me, you reduce yourself to background scenery. Hannah stepped in with perfect timing, wiping at the corner of her eye. Hey, she murmured, reaching for Emily's hand. This is my fault, I pushed, it will not happen again. She looked at me, pupils wide, the picture of remorse. Right, she added softly. We are good, we can be good. In that moment, I understood something ugly. She would happily take surface blame if it cemented the deeper story. Hannah reckless. Me unstable. Emily stuck in the middle of two difficult women. It was a script that protected their bond and kept me on thin ice. We are not good, I said, almost under my breath. But I will not ruin your photos. Emily's shoulders relaxed a fraction at that. Thank you, she whispered, the words sounding more like relief than gratitude. She squeezed my arm once and turned back toward the courtyard. Hannah hung back with me for half a beat. As soon as Emily's veil disappeared around the corner, her face changed. The softness dropped away like a mask, leaving something cooler. You should have heard yourself, she murmured. You looked completely unhinged. I stared at her, stunned that she could pivot this fast. You called me a pet, I reminded her, voice shaking again. She shrugged, completely calm now. You act like one where she is concerned, she replied. Always begging for reassurance, always afraid she will leave. I opened my mouth to fire something back and stopped. Because underneath the cruelty, there was a splinter of truth. I had clung to that friendship like it was air. I had built a lot of my identity around being her person. That realization hurt in a whole different way. I am done talking to you, I managed, turning away. Whatever this is, you can keep it, I am out. She chuckled behind me, low and amused. You will not walk, she called after me. You would never risk being the villain in her story. The worst part is she was right. I went back out into the light and took my place. The photographer called for big smiles and soft eyes. I lifted my bouquet, angled my body, and did exactly what they wanted. Somewhere behind my teeth, the words she'd used lodged like a thorn. Later, when I saw the photos, I could pinpoint the exact shots from after that hallway scene. My smile never reached my eyes in those frames. Hannah's hand rested lightly on my back in most of them. To everyone else, it looked supportive, maybe even affectionate. To me, it will always look like a leash I pretended not to feel. The gallery link popped up while I was in line at the grocery store. My thumb hovered over it so long the screen dimmed. New message from Emily, 3 hearts 1 camera emoji. Look, she wrote, they turned out incredible. My chest tightened before I even opened the album. I tapped the link and the first image filled my screen. There she was, laughing up at her new husband, veil lifted. Everyone around them beaming, hands mid-clap, movement frozen. For a second I forgot to breathe because she really did look deliriously happy. Then I spotted myself at the edge of the frame and my stomach dropped. My smile sat perfectly in place, textbook bridesmaid expression. But my shoulders leaned away from Hannah's hand braced at my back. It looked like support if you did not know the hallway scene. I knew exactly how hard her fingers dug into the fabric. Seeing it captured like affection messed with my head. I swiped to the next shot, then the next, thumb moving faster. Group photo, dance floor, cake cutting, speeches, more dancing. In every wide shot, we were arranged in the same loose triangle. Emily at the center, Hannah on one side, me on the other. The distance between them and me looked small on camera and huge in my memory. By the time the line moved, my heart was beating too fast. I tossed things on the belt without really looking. The cashier asked how I was and I said fine automatically. You know that weird numb answer you give when you are actually spinning. I paid, grabbed my bag and sat in my car without starting it. I replayed the wedding in my head while the engine stayed off. The ceremony, the vows, the way Emily's hand shook slightly. The reception, the music, the endless toasts and staged laughter. All the times I swallowed something and smiled because she asked for peace. All the times Hannah glanced at me like she was keeping score. A message bubble popped up over the gallery. Do you like them? Emily wrote, they caught everyone so well. I stared at the text, thumb resting on the screen. There was a version of me that would reply with 50 exclamation marks. I did not know how to be that person anymore. They are beautiful, I typed finally, words careful and neutral. You look over the moons. I almost added you deserve it, then deleted it. She answered with a flurry of emojis, and I could not have done it without you. That line hit something soft in me and something bitter at the same time. A second notification slid down right under hers. Hannah. In the group chat announcing. Gallery is live, bridesmaids, brace yourselves for tags. The chat lit up with squealing and hearts within seconds. I watched my screen fill with comments without typing anything. Someone posted a screenshot of a photo where I stood mid-laugh. Look at Leela actually relaxed, one bridesmaid wrote. Another replied she did not even faint once. Laugh reactions stacked under it like confetti, quick and casual. My throat tightened and I muted the thread for 8 hours again. Yes, I know I could have left the chat altogether. Blocked Hannah, removed myself, scorched the ground. At that point I still thought leaving would prove her right. The unstable one finally cut and ran, what a surprise. I was obsessed with not giving her that script to use. Days passed and the gallery spread across social media. Random relatives posted their favorite shots and tagged us. Emily's feed turned into a highlight reel of the whole weekend. Every post had 10 comments from her and a dozen from Hannah. My name appeared mostly under group pictures, barely mentioned in the captions. I clicked one of Emily's posts and opened the comments. Hannah had written, could not have survived wedding planning without you. Emily replied, same, ride or die forever. The words stung more than they should have, I know. But I had been the one labeled the clinger, not her. I typed a short compliment and hit send. Still obsessed with your dress. No inside joke, no long memory, just safe surface. Emily liked it after a while and added a quick love you. I tried not to notice that Hannah's comments got full sentences and stories. Contact between us shrank without either of us announcing it. Before, we called while folding laundry, commuting, doing nothing. After the wedding, messages were mostly forwarded memes or quick updates. Exhausted, married life is wild. Back at work, wanna die. Look at this candle my aunt bought us. It all skimmed the top of things and never went under. I finally cracked and sent a longer message one Sunday evening. Can we talk about the wedding stuff at some point, I wrote. Not detailed, not accusing, just that. She answered a little later. Honestly, I am still wiped, can we not rehash right now? The words rehash and right now stuck in my chest. Right now sounded like maybe someday, maybe after some distance. Rehash made it sound like ancient history instead of a fresh bruise. I typed okay another time and slid my phone face down. Another time never came. Meanwhile, Hannah stayed very present in our digital world. She responded to every story Emily posted within seconds. Inside jokes appeared in their comments that I did not recognize. Brunch photos. Gym selfies. Random Tuesday routines. Little glimpses of a daily closeness I did not have anymore. I would love to tell you I deleted the apps and moved on. That I chose my sanity over watching their friendship evolve. Instead, I watched the whole thing in real time like a slow show. Every heart emoji from Hannah under something Emily wrote. Every you get me more than anyone post that was not tagged with me. One afternoon I met Emily for coffee, just the two of us. I was nervous enough that my hands trembled around the cup. She walked in late, apologizing, hair up, ring catching the light. Married life turned me into a tornado, she joked, dropping into the chair. It made me smile despite everything, which hurt in its own way. We talked about her job, her in-laws, their honeymoon travel delay. Small things, safe things, nothing with sharp edges. I kept waiting for a natural entry point to bring up the hallway. The group chat. The pet comment. Every time I edged toward it, my throat closed. Near the end, she checked the time and winced. Okay, I have to run to the store before they close, she said. I could feel the window closing and my pulse picked up. There is something I want to say, I blurted out. My voice came out rough and too loud for the quiet corner. She set her bag back on the chair and gave me her attention. Talk, she said, leaning forward, expression guarded and tired. That look alone almost made me back off. I pushed through it because I knew if I did not now, I never would. I still feel pretty raw about what Hannah did, I started. Her face changed just enough for me to notice. Not annoyance exactly, more like dread mixed with resignation. I knew we would get here, she muttered, rubbing her temple. I swallowed and kept going anyway. I need you to understand it was not just friendly teasing for me. I kept it as specific as I could without spiraling. The group chat bets. The bachelorette game. The rehearsal breakdown list. The hallway speech before the ceremony. I watched her expression tighten more with each example. I felt targeted, I said finally. I felt humiliated, it did not feel like love, it felt like sport. My voice. He shook on that last word and I let it. If she only ever saw me controlled, she would never understand. She took a long breath and stared at a spot over my shoulder. I am not going to defend everything she said, she replied. She crosses lines, I know that. Relief fluttered in me for a second before she continued. But you also know how you can be, Leela. Hearing that in a quiet coffee shop hit harder than in a crowded restaurant. How I can be, I repeated slowly, heat creeping up my chest. She nodded, eyes soft but firm. You spiral fast, you take things very personally, you replay them forever. She held up a hand when I started to interrupt. That is not an insult, it is just how your brain works. It was meant to sound neutral, I think. It did not land neutral. It landed like, here we go again, you are the complicated one. You are describing why her behavior hurt, I pointed out. Not why it should be excused. I am not excusing it, she insisted, tension creeping into her jaw. I have talked to her about it. My stomach dropped. When, I asked, genuinely thrown. After the rehearsal, she answered. After the hallway thing on the day, after the wedding, multiple times. That surprised me more than anything else she could say. You never told me that, I said, voice small with confusion. She shrugged, looking suddenly exhausted. Every time I try to talk to you about her, it turns into a storm. She stirred her empty cup with a little stick until it clicked. So what does she say when you bring it up? I asked. I wanted something solid, not just vague. I talked to her comfort. She says she pushes you because she thinks you can handle honesty, Emily answered. She admits she goes too far. She also says you are not exactly gentle with yourself. That last part felt like another small punch. It dawned on me in that moment. They had talked about me a lot. Sometimes as a concern. Sometimes as a joke. Sometimes as a shared frustration. And I had not really been in that room for any of it. Do you think I am needy? I asked quietly. I did not dress it up this time, did not add disclaimers. Her eyes flicked to mine and held. I think you feel things deeply, she said slowly. And I think you ask a lot from the people closest to you. That was not a no. It was not a yes either, which almost made it worse. Do you think I am her pet? I asked, forcing the word out. Her face twisted immediately. She actually used that, she demanded. I nodded once, stomach churning. Emily swore under her breath and scrubbed a hand over her face. I did not know about that part, she said. That is disgusting. For the first time in months, she looked truly angry at Hannah. It felt vindicating and awful at the same time. I would never call you that, she added, voice rough. I do not see you that way. A long pause settled between us, full of things unsaid. But I pressed because I could feel one coming. Her eyes dropped to her hands again. But I also cannot go back to being your first emergency call for everything, she finished. Her words were gentle and steady and final. I am married now, my life looks different, my energy has to spread differently. This was not about Hannah anymore, not fully. This was about me being asked to shrink in general. So what am I to you now? I asked, tears burning behind my eyes. She looked at me like I had put her on a witness stand. You are my best friend, she said. That does not change, the way we function might. It sounded like a breakup speech disguised as maturity. I sat there, caught between defensiveness and understanding. She was allowed to have boundaries. She was allowed to need less intensity from me. She was not obligated to tolerate my late-night spirals forever. All of that is true, even now typing this. At the same time, I kept thinking. She did not have this conversation until after her bridesmaid called me a pet. She waited until someone else framed me as too much. Then she quietly agreed that yes, actually, I was kind of a lot. That context matters, at least in my head. I need space, I heard myself say. The words startled both of us. My brain had not fully decided on them before my mouth did. From you, from the group chat, from Hannah's voice in my head. It felt reckless and necessary. Emily's eyes glistened and she blinked fast. If that is what you want, she whispered, fingers tightening around her cup. I was hoping we could adjust without disappearing. I shook my head, more sure of this part than anything. I do not know how to do small around you, I admitted. That is the most honest thing I have ever said to her. I only know how to be all in or gone. Middle ground feels like starvation, like constantly reaching and never grabbing. She exhaled slowly and nodded, jaw trembling once. So what does space look like? She asked. I am going to step out of the chat, I sigh. Day. I am going to turn my phone off at night without panicking. I swallowed around the lump in my throat. And I am not going to rush in every time you post something with her. Saying that last part felt like ripping off a bandage. She flinched at that just a little. That is not fair, she protested quietly. I am allowed to have more than one close friend. I know, I answered. This is not about what you are allowed to do, it is about what I can handle. We sat there in silence for a while. We listened to the espresso machine hiss and people talk at other tables. It felt surreal to have such a big fracture in such an ordinary place. Eventually, she reached across and squeezed my hand. I do love you, she said, eyes shining. I know, I replied. I just do not know if you like me very much lately. That line slipped out before I could polish it, and I am glad. Her face crumpled in a way I had never seen. That is not true, she whispered. I did not push. Somewhere deep down, I believed her and also did not. We hugged outside the shop, quick and strange. Not the bone-crushing kind we used to share after bad days. More like acquaintances who went through something together once. She walked one way and I walked in the other direction. I cried the whole drive home, which was not my best adult moment. That night, after my eyes stopped burning, I opened my laptop. The blank post box stared back at me, cursor blinking. I typed a title once, deleted it, typed another, deleted again. Finally, I wrote, one of the bridesmaids to my best friend's wedding keeps pushing my boundaries. I stared at it and added, and called me something I cannot shake. I started from the zipper, which probably tells you a lot. I walked strangers through the group chat, the bar game, the rehearsal list. The hallway, the pet comment, the way Emily handled it all. I typed until my fingers ached and my shoulders throbbed. Then I went back and added all the parts where I messed up too. I wrote about my late-night calls and how much I leaned on her. I talked about my panic episodes and how they color everything. I admitted that I sometimes reread old texts to see where I went wrong. I even confessed that part of me is jealous of Hannah's place in her life. Turning those ugly thoughts into sentences made me feel weirdly lighter. I did not paint myself as an angel or them as monsters. I let the details sit and do their own work. I asked people reading if this was just normal teasing that I could not handle, or if it crossed into something meaner that I had been gaslit into accepting. I asked if stepping back made me a bad friend or a finally self-respecting one. Then I hovered over the post button. You ever sit with your finger over a decision that feels small and enormous? It was just a website, just strangers, just words on a screen. It was also the first time I chose my version of events without editing for them. I clicked. Comments started appearing faster than I expected. Some were gentle, some blunt, some somewhere between. A lot of them said the same thing in different language. People who like you do not call you animals. Jokes that require one person to stay quiet are not harmless. You can be intense and still deserve basic respect. A few called me dramatic and clingy just to keep me honest. I did not even hate those ones, weirdly. They mirrored what I already thought about myself on bad days. But the majority agreed on one simple point. This dynamic with Hannah was not okay. Reading those words, I felt something loosen in my chest. Not fixed. Not healed. Just less alone in my perception. For the first time in months, I stopped checking my phone for a text from either of them. The next morning, I left the group chat quietly. No long explanation, no final speech, just Leela has left. I blocked Hannah's number before I could talk myself out of it. I did not block Emily. That part matters to me even now. We still follow each other online. We still like the occasional photo. We have not had a real conversation in months. Maybe someday we will sit across from each other again and try. Maybe not. I wish I could wrap this up with some tidy lesson. I wish I could say I found a new best friend who never pushes my buttons. Life does not really work like that, at least not for me. What I have instead is this small, stubborn shift. I am slowly learning that shrinking myself to keep a seat at someone's table is its own kind of cruelty. So that is my question for you, and honestly for myself. When someone keeps telling you who you are in the ugliest terms, and the person you love most quietly agrees that parts of it might be true. At what point do you stop arguing with them and start walking away? At what point do you let the version of you in their heads die so you can finally build a different one somewhere else? Because I think I am right at that edge now, Starin. G down.